Bob, I'm so honored that you have welcomed us into your home here at
It's my
Seaside Park,
pleasure.
New Jersey. I've known you for a long time at the trade shows in Somerset. You've always been so effervescent with your love of fishing and your friends, and to know you personally before we even got here has really been a great honor of mine. To know Pops,
Thank you.
and
Thank you very much.
what you've done in the fishing world is really quite amazing. I mean, look where we're sitting. Tell me about this room.
Well, there are a lot of memories in this room, and oh my goodness, it was just a continuation of what I recall when I first got started. When I got started, I came back from Vietnam in 1970. I was 21 years old. A guy named Butch Colvin came over, and I had just met him, and we ended up going fishing that day. And while we were fishing, we were using conventional tackle, jigging for weakfish along the Jersey Shore here. And all of a sudden, a school of bluefish came up on the surface, coming towards the boat and all that. Well, he got all excited, scurried into the cat and pulled out a fly rod and set up. And I'm saying, well, what's that? I see all that real thick white line, And he said, oh, I'm going to fly cast for these bluefish that are coming by. I said, oh, yeah, cool, man. I've always wanted to do that. He says, no. He says, but not now. He says, I can take care of this tomorrow, maybe. And so sure enough, the next day they come and pick me up at my house in Bayville and bring me to Seaside Park to Cap Colvin's tackle store, his father's place. And Butch Colvin, he introduced me, and then I got my first fly rod, reel, and first casting lesson right out in front on here in Seaside Park, a half a block away from where we sit. So next thing one thing leads to another, and then before you know it, I'm involved in the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America, Chapter 1 in Seaside Park.
Mm-hmm.
But they had been established already. Now, this is 1970, and they started, I think, in like 62 or 64. I don't know when the chapter necessarily was, but it was years ago. It was already starting to build just within the tight little community that they had. And so I get exposed to that. And one of the things, the camaraderie is what got me in there. I'm all big on that. It's not so much the fishing as it is exchanging ideas with other fishermen, having fun with them, creating memories, creating laughter and all things like that. That was always very special to me. And without that, I wouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't need to go down there and catch a fish.
Let me back up just a second here, because I'd like to preface this by saying you're talking about the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you band of brothers originally you built this chapter here locally, and eventually you had a number of chapters around the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, around the world.
Right. And you guys, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from understanding from doing the podcast with Mark Sosin and Lefty, Fred Schreier, who started the whole thing. If I'm not mistaken, this was a band of brothers that started the ground floor of world record catching.
Yes.
Because you guys established the leader length of the class tippet, I think the bite tippet. All these rules, I think, if I'm not mistaken, were originally set up by the Miami Beach Rod and Reel Club. And I think you implemented a bunch of those regulations into your own chapter.
That could be. I wasn't involved in that. That was before I got here, for sure.
Because initially there was a 12-pound light. So when you fished for tarpon, you could use 12-pound tippet, but there was no bite tippet. And yesterday, driving here, we called Stu Apt, because I was trying to figure out who was the guy that said the bite tippet can only be 12 inches, and the class tippet has to be at least 15 inches. Yeah. I can never find that name. But anyway, let's go back to this chapter. So the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America, I think also, too, didn't you have this room where you guys all came from January to May on a Tuesday night to talk fly tying and fishing?
But that was after the Saltwater Fly Rodders had disbanded.
Oh, really?
That was
that
after.
Chapter had disbanded.
That was all of it was done. Fred Schreier, who was the start, this gentleman here. Okay. He had sugar, had a leg, had to be amputated, and his health started to fail later. He was living then in Florida. Well, he ran the whole national organization, everything, not just Chapter 1. He did the national, which was centered in Cape May, New Jersey. But from his home, he did it. That mailing address was Cape May, New Jersey. But the real address was 13 Green Twig Drive in Toms River.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he was the man. So when he was out, then that meant everything was done. That was until then that the world records were taken over by IGFA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was gifted, the technical part of that, I don't know.
What happened was Mark Sosin was breaking all the tippets, and he was documenting the world records.
Yes.
Under the umbrella of you guys, Saltwater Fly Rodders of America. Yes. And then at one point, Mark got really worried about the liability. If he were to disqualify a record, he was always worried about getting sued. So at that point, he gave all the world record keeping responsibilities over to the IGFA. So you guys, if I'm not mistaken, were establishing, world record catches and what qualified as a world record.
Yeah, we held
Mark
all
Sosin
that.
did.
Yeah, for years. And I don't know, I have all this stuff. I'm lucky enough to have all this
we can
information.
We can look at this, a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
I just want to, talk the talk right now.
Yeah, well, that was, we got all of that. And then, but what was good about it, like this one picture you could see here, there's Bub Church. There's us. There's Butch Colvin, Ronnie Lieber, Bruce Martinez. I can't see the rest of them too clear. But this is what we did. You get a fly tyer, came down and would sit there and teach us. And Bub was great. We thought Bub was the best there was. Okay, very close friend of Mark Sosin and Fred and all. And we would sit there, and this action right here is exactly what this did. So when the Saltwater Fly Rodders was gone, Saltwater or other guys interested had no place to go.
To talk about the talk and the fly tying and the design and the fishing.
There was not. So that's when Don Wall, right there, and Fred Schreier. Here you can see these are the earliest pictures of this Tuesday night here. This is Fred Schreier here. We had a card table. That's all we had. And my buddy Don said to me, listen, he's going northern pike fishing up in New York State. He says, would you mind making some flies? I said, no, listen. I said, I got to make my own flies. Season's coming. Why don't you come on over to the house? We'll tie together. That was this night.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then that grew. Then we went from a card table. The word got out. And then there would be an open, come on by. We do it Tuesday night. Boom, boom, boom. They had no idea what was going on yet. And then they would show up. Okay. And it was just absolutely amazing. It went from a card table to an oak tabletop.
How many guys were coming on those Tuesdays?
Upwards of over 50 in one day.
In this house.
In this house. And when those, right across the street, there was an empty lot. Those two big houses right there, that was an empty lot. And when the time would change to the spring and the weather got warmer, we cast it over there. The guy who owned the lot lived in Long Beach Island, which is not, as the crow flies, it's not that far. But if you have to drive it to go from Long Beach Island to Seaside Park and back,
right?
He made sure that lawn that he had there was all grass, wild grass, that it was cut before we have Tuesday nights.
That's awesome.
And our cars would be parked from Central Avenue and Seaside Park all the way to the bay and back. And not one complaint from any of my neighbors for years.
Wow.
It was an amazing event. Then it would happen. They welcomed it. They looked, they watched, they had a good time watching us have a ball.
And it was, and Lefty was here? Lefty was here. Jarowski was here?
Jarowski, Frank Wentink, Andy Renzetti. And more, and all these guys. From the guys as far away as Maine to Michigan, to South Carolina. All had ended up here. It was an open invite to anybody. You did not knock at the door. That was the key. You did not knock. You just walked in, stay to your left, go up the steps.
These steps right here.
Yes. And I'd be sitting here tying with somebody, but this is so we got 9 guys here. And I could see somebody come up that, well, I never saw that guy before. And I just say, hey, man, how you doing? And just the coffee's in the other room. You know, we had coffee and brownies and strawberry shortcake, beer, soda. It was just special.
It's interesting in that you have all these iconic people. They were not quite as famous as they eventually became, but this was the hub of all the greats. So when you go to the trade shows, you go to all the different booths, and there was, you were there, Lefty was there, Popovics, and Klauser for sure.
Yeah.
But you kind of held it together for all those years. After you were talking about the club kind of dissolving, right?
Yeah, the chapter was gone because there was no longer Saltwater Fly Rodders of America. So then the chapter 1, that's done. So there was nothing around, and then I just opened this up, only mimicking basically the camaraderie that I enjoyed. Tying flies. So me and my buddy tied, then there's another one. There's another guy. Here's another one. Before you know it, it got big.
Yeah. As you know, Nikki and I are here to go to the Somerset Trade Show this afternoon. When I was first going there 15 years ago, they were all there, and they're all starting to dissipate. But you're going to be there on Saturday. Tell me about the early years of all the trade shows and all these same guys that basically started and evolved and innovated a big part of the saltwater fly fishing in the Northeast.
Yeah, so true. Well, I was lucky enough to get in with Chuck Furimsky at his first show, which was out in Seven Springs, Pennsylvania, almost as far out as Pittsburgh. So we did a few of those first. And luckily, I took video with me then. And I have video of all the guys I would walk through, one person, one table at a time. And guys like
right down the line,
Joe Messenger Jr. and his son. He's just a young little boy then, but then he's a big kid. So many guys I can't even remember half the names, only because of my age anymore now. My memory's not the best. But thank God I got all the videos of them and had a ball. I mean, oh my God, sitting there watching Lefty tie a deceiver. And then he's got to go to the casting pond. So here, Bobby, take this, hold on to this till I get back. It was a ball. And then to see Andy Renzetti there with his wife, Lily. And I'm there not tying on a Renzetti. Because I had my one Renzetti is in the other room from here. But that was the only one. And I used to polish that up to go to shows because it was so pretty. But otherwise, I was using a Dyna King at the time. And he says, I got to get you one of my, I said, well, next thing, we had a great relationship because he lived in Pennsylvania. So then Andy would come. We frequented, had a great friendship for many, many, many years. And then, of course, when I go to the first show, the first person I meet, as soon as you walk through the door in the first booth, that actually was a big table, was Klauser's Fly Shop. So there's Pop, my buddy. Well, that's how I met Mr. Bob Klauser. And he's been like a father to me ever since. All those years, we traveled together, we fished together, we tied together, we did shows together. We, tried to make sure that we do a good job for other people and how to do that. And I was the lucky one. I was the kid. I was the young guy. I'm only in my 20s and maybe 30 by then. But oh my God. It was like, holy smokes, where am I? I'm lucky.
Who was the most inspirational for you?
Well, it's hard to say the most, but I do have a lot. First off would be Fred Schreier, without a doubt. He would have to be because he was the teacher. He was the one that exposed me to all of these guys. He's the one that introduced me to Mark Sosin, to Bub Church, to Lefty Kreh. Vince Sperano. He was there, and then I watched, and See, now he's doing his job in his cellar. And I would go down there either going to work or coming back from work. I'd stop off at his house. And I'm down there and he's got a tying room and, I see him doing his business and he's talking, he's showing me, he's telling me stories about things. And then he said, now listen, as years would go, a couple of years later, now he wants me there on a certain day because they're having a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, there it is.
There it
Lefty, there's Bub, there's Mark at Fred's house and me. I'm a fly on the wall.
Wow.
And I'm taking all this. And then, of course, I'm showing him my flies. And then I got Mark and Lefty saying, yeah, dude, what is this, man? Oh, God, it was incredible.
Well, Lefty, I think a lot of people know he said that you're probably the best fly tyer of all time. Who inspired you to tie? What got you
Butch Colvin.
Into tying flies?
Butch Colvin. That's Cap Colvin's son. That's the guy who got me started in it. Because not only did he get me started in fly fishing, he also got me interested in hockey. I never played it, but I told him, I said, I can't watch it. I never follow the puck. He says, all right, I'll be over to the house tonight, so we're going to watch. There was a Bruins and Rangers game on TV, so he would come over. But when he came over that night, he knocked at my door. And usually Butch would just walk right in. I know he's coming. I said, Butch, that you? And I'm walking to the door. Yeah. So I opened the door, and here he is standing there with a cardboard flat. It's got a vise. It's got fly tying tools and bucktail in it. I know what it's for, but I had never tied a fly yet. I would get flies from my buddies that would give them. I'd bum them off just like everybody else did.
Right.
I said, oh, come on, Butch, look at these hands. I can't do that. He says, you're going to learn between the periods.
Oh, interesting. So you learned how to tie flies while watching hockey.
Yep. By the guy who taught me how to watch hockey and enjoy it. And I still do it to today. I'd rather watch hockey than any other sport in the world.
Do you still tie a lot?
Not now. I used to. But, I mean, I tied a lot.
Right.
And but Butch was instrumental in so much. He was very influential.
Well, let's go back for a second to the fishing, and then we'll come back to the fly tying.
Okay.
Because with the surf candy and how you design your flies. Tell me about the Northeast striper fishing, the blue fishing, and all you did with all your buddies from the beach, and you throwing that great backhand cast, off the beach. It's the tightest loop ever, and it's about 100 feet away from your head. Tell me about your relationship with the fishing here in the Northeast, and what was that fishery like, and how it evolved over the years.
Okay, I had been fishing all my life with my father. Lived in South Trenton, only a block away from the Delaware River. My father had a bar called Corner Inn Bar and Grill on Center and Layler Streets in Trenton. And he owned that since like 46 to 64. That's when we moved out and came down to Bayville. But I fished all the time with my father. And on the surf, I fished. My uncle had a four-wheel drive. I can still remember getting banged around in the back with my cousin. He was the same age as me.
You were a beach guy.
I was a beach guy. That was my father's big thing. He loved boat fishing, and he had a boat. But no, surf fishing to him was prime.
Why was the surf fishing so exciting?
I think it's the challenge.
It is harder.
Yep. It's the challenge, the fact that you accept the disadvantages and you.
That's why we fly. That's why we fly fish.
That's it.
Make it harder.
It's something I did all my life. I remember going on a beach one time, and I was able, and my father rigged me up, and we're in the parking lot on Island Beach State Park, and I had to walk over the dunes and wait for him, and I got down there real quick, and I cast it out right away, and doggone it, I got a fluke. I could still remember seeing the fluke as the wave would come up. I could see the underbelly of the fluke, and my father's now finally coming over the dune. So I had to fish before he even got onto the beach again, but it was always fun. And then on the way home, because we have to go to Trenton, you go through the Jersey Pines. He would pick up minnows like killies or whatever, and on the way back we would fish for pickerel in the Jersey Pines and go to Trenton and be all done and be all set. But I fished my whole time from the Delaware River catching catfish and herring run to striped bass and bluefish here in the surf. and boom, everything in between. Now, I get married. Now I'm still a fisherman. I like to fish. And I live right here in Seaside Park. 4-wheel drive. I get my own 4-wheel drive. Now I can get on the beach and access that. And the surf it's just second nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it was automatic. I never would even think about it like, oh, this is the best. This is the way to fish. No, it was just, that was it.
Right.
That's where you fished.
Right.
And I just absolutely love it. And the fishing was good then. Not the best, but it was good. Had bad years, good years. We had a variety of fish from striped bass to bluefish, and then sprinkled with weak fish now in every 6 or 7 years or so, whatever. But I just absolutely loved it. I thought it's world-class fishing all the way. And the other thing, too, is in the surf, it's all shallow water relative to fishing in a boat. So I would always like to see nature, too. And I can witness what I'm looking through with polarized glasses. I could see bait. I could see fish, the predators. I could see the whole action happening in front of me, where I got bluefish chasing bait in the shallows of 2-3 foot of water.
Wow.
With a white sandy bottom contrast.
Beautiful.
So it was fantastic. So it was just something I couldn't resist.
Did you have, was there any sort of structure along the beach where you would target fish, like sandbars and current come over sandbars?
Yes.
Stay on the other side of the sandbar.
Yeah, here would be all sandbars. It's all, we have structure. We have the pier in Seaside Heights. That's a man-made pier. That was the structure. We have small jetties up in Lavalette where we had, since Sandy, you don't have them now anymore, or beach replenishment. But we had small ones, and we have the North Jetty at the end of Island Beach State Park.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Barnegat Inlet Jetty, North Jetty. But other than that, you relied on sandbars and the formations of them, and they move every year a little bit different.
Sure.
A couple spots would be like the 2-bit bar, which was in an area just on the northern end of the bathing area. That was a structure that always seemed to be there year to year, but maybe shifted a little bit right, a little bit left, north or south.
Mm-hmm.
But basically that formation usually was there. Everything in between would change. Some years you had big cuts. Some years you had really flat beaches. You had to read it.
So you had your own spots, even though you're on a beach.
Yeah, you did. See your own spot, you could have favorite spots. Yeah,
right.
That always produced. Usually it wasn't a spot as much as it was an area.
Right. Would you have any sort of like battles with other anglers trying to get to your spot before
No.
You never had anything like that going?
No, but you just don't like. You always gave space.
Right. How many
Not
guys?
everybody did.
Right.
I know a couple of good buddies of mine who jump in your skin.
Really?
Oh God, yeah.
Because you get too close, or you were there first?
Yeah, hey, we were there, and then all of a sudden they're standing over your shoulder casting. I mean, we had that. We had all that. But for being chronic, no. There was only a few guys that would do that, and then some guys that just didn't realize and they wouldn't know. But no, it's been my experience. I never really had any problem. But I always, now once I started to do exclusively fly fishing years later, I would always find my spot away. And you could see a lot of times if fish were coming down, they're moving in a certain direction. So if they're excited and catching fish in this spot, I just slide down. I'll get there first, and I'll wait for that fish to get there. It was another tactic that I could use and have my own space for a while. Then when they came, filled in, I went another spot.
What kind of flies and tackle were you using then?
Well, the flies were...
I saw some old footage of the old Fluger reels, and I think that was kind of a reel and I saw Lefty use that Fluger reel for bone fishing, Joe Brooks.
Yeah.
And that Fluger reel was really kind of a staple for saltwater fly fishing.
I still have mine. I have a few yet around, and I loved it, and I just wish it was still being made. I don't believe that it is. However, that's what we would use, and it was mostly floating lines. And when I first got started here, it was all kaboom boom poppers, a couple different flies like Florida. They call them tarpon tamers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was. They were taking flies from the guys fishing in Florida and adapting them to here.
Mm-hmm.
And then things got Well, they were, or Joe Brooks Blonde was another good one.
Right.
Then here come bluefish, and I would take my blondes and I'd throw out there. I get one hit. The mylar on the shank is all disheveled, coming off and everything. Or after a couple of bluefish, I'd see my fly and it's all chewed up and gone. There's no more real bucktail left. Everything is done. I got to go and change my fly. And then I didn't always have my truck. So now I got to change. I got to go all the way down the beach to get back into the action again. But then I got to change my fly. Now they're further down. It was just a pain in the neck. And I come back to the tackle store. I tell the story. People say, well, that's fly fishing for bluefish.
That's part of the deal.
Part of the game. Goes with it.
And that's what inspired you to start tying more durable flies.
I said, there's got to be a better way. And I would look at my blondes and I would see that the heads were protected with 5-minute epoxy. And that would always be fine. It was the back part that was not covered with any epoxy or head cement that was falling apart. So I said, if I took the tail and pulled it tight, and if I took that 5-minute epoxy and applied it from not just the thread head all the way through the shank, I'll make a more durable fly. I bet you it would be good. And one thing led to another, trial and error, and that's your surf candy now.
Wow. So
then that started. And then you see, not only did epoxy give durability, it gave translucency. So now you can move your flies and get enjoyment and make them more effective by realizing they look like the real thing. You can get them to look more. I was painting a gill with a paintbrush. Come on, how much control? I'm not a painter. So it got better and better, and before you know it, you can make them look like the real damn thing.
Wow.
So I put a silver stripe on it, put a fork tail on the back of the thin mylar, covered it, made it green on top, clear on the bottom. The epoxy would shine that the shank underneath, and then I would paint eyes or found prism eyes. Fred Schreier had some of them, and I put them on the surf candies, and now I got the full dress surf candy, so to speak.
Was there anybody else making flies like this when you were
not when I did
the cutting edge?
The other thing you got to realize too, this was in the 70s, but we had no magazines that were paying any attention to saltwater fly fishing, let alone fly tying. We had Double Haul. That was the only thing where we could see something different.
So that was the magazine of choice at the time.
Of the saltwater fly rodders. That was their.
And what were they talking about in that magazine?
Well, they would show you, it would be blossom
casting
flies.
And stories.
Yeah. It's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have every issue, which I'll show you. And I think you'll get a big kick out of that.
This is a museum.
I got everything almost
here.
So.
It's crazy because you must have been so busy because last night we had dinner at your restaurant, the Shady Rest, that you've had for 58 years.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How did you become a chef?
I'm not a chef. I'm just a pizza man. My wife is an excellent cook, and she's the one.
Was she cooking at the restaurant?
She's the one that's making the Shady Rest.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, my God. She's got a talent in cooking that's second to none as far as I'm concerned. And I couldn't have done any of this without her.
Right.
Her support through the whole thing. Because years later, when I knew I was getting pulled by the industry, and I said, I don't know, Lex, I got to, shit or get off the pot.
Right.
So she says, you got to do this. I said, but it's going to take me away from the restaurant quite a bit. And she put more load on you. She said, that's all right. That's what we got to do.
Were you making a fair amount of money in the fishing industry?
No.
But that was your passion. That's what you wanted to do.
I didn't make anything out of the fishing industry at all.
But you know what? You surround yourself in the restaurant, too, with your life in fishing.
Yes. Yes, I did.
You are crazy passionate about fishing and your friends.
Yes. I'm more passionate about my buddies that I had along the way than I am the fish that I caught. And I say to John Applenap, at one time he asked me, and I said, John, when we get together, because we don't see each other that often, I said, when we get together, we don't talk about the fish that we caught.
No.
we talk more about the fish that we lost and the guys who lost it and our buddies that we were fishing with.
Right.
We remember the buddies first, the fishing after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is all about. This was all about camaraderie. I got my buddy Lance, my best friend of my whole life. He said, Bobby, I know he's the best fisherman that I know. And he says to me, you know, I used to, you know, he knew how passionate he was and how competitive he was about fishing. He said, but I never enjoyed fishing as much as I did till I met you. And that was a big thing coming from him. And he says that's still to this day. It's what we did. We spent people. It would be a good book to be written down.
Yeah.
You know, but we have those memories together. We share I get all the good videos. I've given him copies. He's got memories of what we did as much as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's incredible.
Nikki,
So,
hand me this fly right here.
be careful.
The second one.
Can you get it? I can get it probably from here, Nick.
Do you actually fish with a fly like this?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
What would this represent?
This would represent an adult bunker. That's a mature fish. I'm going to show you the very first one. My passion was many years ago when I was just learning. This is the one I was telling you about. This is the first fly that I tied to address making larger flies for the fly rotter. There you go.
Wow.
Very fragile. But what I used to do is I used to have 2 vices, and I strung monofilament up, between the 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Then,
what I want to do is just kind of like,
you want to turn that?
so the camera can see that. Look at that fly.
So now, what I would do, put 2 vices separated, and then I would take the bobbin, and I'm sorry if don't work too good, but I would, I'll do this for now. And then I would, if that was monofilament between the 2 vices, I can't do that. So I had to figure out a way. I said, all right, well, wait a minute. Since I can't go around like that, how am I? Well, I did, and I would put 1, 2, one more strength there. And then I would pull this down and I would be able to spin it.
Oh, spin it.
I would spin it. All right, let's go back here. Let's get this right. Okay, that's was
how
the
you'd
key.
wrap it.
That's how I wrapped it. And then I would say, oh, God, now how do I tie it off? So I had to figure out a way tying it off because I can't. So what I did, make this loop, I came down and threw this over and threw it over like that. And then through and down. And that was the knot that I made.
Knot that hold.
All right. So, let's see if I can. There we go. Good. Now, but then I could make this. Now, if this one here, what you see, there's 3. You have the white, you have the multicolor on top, and then you have the silver thing with the tail
body.
At the end. There's mono in between there. So I got the 3 sections, married them together down here in the back. I was so tired that night. It's about 4 a.m. And I said, I got to go get some sleep. So I quickly threw chenille, glass eyes, which you can't see on your side, but there's
I see that.
a glass eye on that.
Sure.
Okay.
So this is the first one you tied?
The very first.
The very first one.
This was my first attempt, not at making a beast fly, but at making a fly large, a full-size bunker fly. Flies before this were only this big. That's all they were. They were nothing big. And
how effective was this fly?
Well, never caught a fish. The whole trouble was the idea.
The idea.
Now, this is the one that I would take that down. I'm going to put it back in here.
Yeah, because that's...
Yeah, I've been saving it for all these years. This fly is over 50 years old. And this was the one that I would take it down to the jetty of my buddies, and we casted it around. I knew it was going to be, or at least I suspected that it would be probably effective if it was used at the right time. Where, in other words, a school of bunker would come in and fish were on them. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be casting the beach searching for fish with it.
Would you fish with two rods? One rigged with the big bunker fly, and the other rod would be.
No, you could have. You could have, but I would looking more for a more natural way of it just happening. Either you're up on a boat, you got a school of fish busting up into a school of mature bunker, and you'd be able to get in close and just flop it down there and whatever. But we could have hardly cast it. Guys were laughing and mocking it out quite a bit. Then forward another year or so, till we go down to Ocean City, Maryland, at their new convention center with the saltwater fly rodders. That's where this nameplate came from. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Look at this.
You can see the pictures here. There's Paul Jorgensen, and there's Charlie Waterman, and myself in the middle.
Look at you all lined up tying.
All right. Now, I'm trying to, somebody asked me about it. I don't know how it got on my table, but then I started to put it away, and Charlie Waterman could see that I was kind of hiding it. Really, what are you doing over there? What do you got there? Now, I don't know Charlie Waterman till then. I didn't ever meet him that I knew of. Mm-hmm. But now I got Charlie Waterman. He sees that and he says, "Oh, my God." He said, "I never saw anything like this. Wow." What? And he's getting all these. Paul. He calls Paul Jorgensen. All right. That's the other one. Paul comes over and says, "What the hell is this? Jesus. This yours?" And he's saying all that kind of stuff. I said, "Oh, God, here we go again. I'm going to get mocked out by the best in the business."
Are you scared now?
Yeah, I was like,
are you scared?
Oh, shit, why did I get caught with this? Oh, they went nuts. Then right away, Paul, of course, was extremely close with Lefty. Now, Lefty's there, too. Lefty.
What do you think,
comes
Lefty?
over. He says, "All right, get Boyd Pfeiffer. He's got to take pictures of this." They went crazy.
Who's Boyd Pfeiffer?
Boyd Pfeiffer is the man who took the pictures.
Okay.
And he wrote for the Washington Post. So he's the first one that wrote about this fish, this fly. I have that article on the wall over here on the outside as you come up the steps.
Wow.
And he took the picture. I don't know if I have it now more, but he took pictures of it for the article. And that's how that got. And then all of a sudden, I thought I was going to get knocked out by the three best in the business.
They loved it.
Patted on the back. And then from then on, it was just one thing after another. So then came the surf candy. Surf candy came after that.
Right.
So, and then one thing, and then of course, Lefty, nothing like Lefty. That was like, he would remember your name, and we just had a ball. And then we're down there in North Carolina at the opening of the Holiday Inn in Nags Head, and I'm on the diving board of the pool outside, and Lefty's there doing his thing, and then he gets me up on the diving board and give me my first, big old lesson from Lefty Kreh. We've been buddies like that for God knows for how many years.
He taught you how to fly cast standing on a diving board at the Holiday Inn.
Yes. Yep.
But you
gave me my first lesson.
But you were fishing before then with the fly rod.
Yeah, but I had fly casted here and all
right.
that. But now I never had Lefty Kreh. They talked about Lefty Kreh. But you ought to see him cast. But not many guys were able to see him. There were no shows around. Where were you going to find these guys?
Right.
But anyway, I get lucky enough to be with him now. I'm learning his theory on casting and all that. And he says, "Oh, you're Polish?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'll go slow for you." and of course, I had to live with that joke with all my buddies for years.
I know.
But we had a ball, man. We had an absolute wonderful time, wonderful life together. And
I see that photograph of Lefty tying a fly right behind you.
Yes, sir. Yep, he sat right here. And he came, listen to this now. He says, I get a phone call, and it's from Lefty, and he even does the same thing with Bob Clouser. He doesn't call him Bob, and he doesn't call me Bob. He calls me Bobby, and he calls Clouser Bobby. And so I get a phone call. "Hello, Bobby, this is Lefty. Hey, man." He says, "Bobby, I got to come up to that thing you got going on there Tuesday nights. That's all I hear about. I want to come to that. Can I come?" Are you kidding me? Can you come?
Right.
Oh, geez. Well, what I used to do.
What did that happen to the group of guys once Lefty started to come on those Tuesday nights?
Well,
Did all of a sudden the whole town want to show up because Lefty was here?
Here's what I had to do. I would, right there where Nikki is leaning, I would put a small clipboard. I would tell them who's here today or tonight. And then before the night was over, I would put another piece of paper up there that who's coming next week or what we're doing next week. And on it for next week, I said, tying a Lefty's Deceiver, fly tire Bob Popovics. Okay. Well, I knew Lefty was coming. So that's what I did. I said, we're doing the Deceiver. I didn't tell anybody that Lefty was coming. Because if I did, I would have had half the state here. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, Lefty gets here. He comes, Larry Duckwall from Delaware, he brought him up. And we're in there having dinner. We had dinner downstairs at our table. Other guys, too, were there, like Lance and a couple others that would normally be here every Tuesday.
Were you feeding everybody on these Tuesday nights also?
Just my closest friends at the table. Lexus would make two dinner choices. And then Lance would go around with a salad bowl in his hand. And if you wanted salad, he took his hand in there and dumped it on your plate. If you didn't want it, you didn't get salad. So it was just one of those things. We just had a great time. But now Lefty's here. He's early, so we got him, cooked him up a nice steak and all that. Real well done and all. So he sat down there. So now he's there early, 4 o'clock. We get our dinner done. Comes up here. And I had a shelf over here where I had we could do a slideshow. I had a screen over here. I pulled the screen down. Well, that's what Lefty used to do a seminar about new places to fly fish around the world. So he does a slideshow here. Then he sits down, comes in here. And he's talking about bend backs, tying different knots. And he's hands-on with guys. And then he starts telling his jokes.
This room must have been stuffed.
Oh, it was stuffed. And I had guys laying on the floor on the steps, kneeling on the step, looking between somebody's legs to see Lefty at the.
Wow.
It was just absolutely packed. Incredible. And I didn't tell anybody that he was coming. So when he came in, he scratched out my name, Deceiver, and then he signed it. I have all that stuff right here. It's
a museum.
You got to see, because I just happen to have it right here. At least it won't take too long. But it's like, it's amazing what's here. I started to realize that what was going on
was a big deal.
Special. So I started to say, I started to take roll. Look at here. Of when the guys would come in. How many of them?
All the names.
And it would go, look at here. This is, now.
Read off some of these names.
Read up, I got some, wait here. This, fly time, then. Yeah, one was the start. All right. Cousin Leon came. I got all these guys. Fly time, Fred Schreier, Bluefish. Where's the one with Lefty? I had Lefty's Deceiver, Clouds, and Jaworowski.
So this was a demonstration. This room was a place to demonstrate how to tie certain flies and just communicate and share the love.
January 29th, 1991. Lefty Kreh put on the best show I ever saw. From 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. Midnight. Non-stop, absolutely great time. Lefty showed slideshow for over an hour, then tied deceivers, clouser minnows, and bendbacks. Jokes all over the place. No one here will ever forget tonight. Lefty is without a doubt the best friend fly fishing ever had. We are really grateful. But see, what I would do is I would take and do that. There's the thing I was telling you about. See how it's crossed out? And then Lefty signed it. Okay? But this is all my notes that I saved.
See that right here?
Take it. Yeah, check that all out.
Tire Bob Popovich crossed out Lefty Kreh with arrows.
Yeah.
With arrows. It was, I think, too, Lefty really showed people how to act, how celebrities should act. Don't you think?
He held you accountable. If he heard something bad, you're going to hear it.
Because he was so grounded.
Well, he entrusted in you his feelings, and if you didn't hold up, I'm sure he would let you know. I was just very, very lucky. Oh my God!
Well, tell me about the Pirates Party.
Pirates Party. That was.
Was that kind of like an extension of what you guys were doing here in this room?
No, that was all of itself, all of its own. That was the new thing that happened in saltwater fly fishing in the Northeast, as compared to when I first started, was the fact of sight fishing for striped bass in these areas, as similar to keys.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing what you guys would do for tarpon, the same manner of fishing for striped bass. We're sight fishing and we're casting to individual fish. You're not just throwing cast and retrieve, which is what everybody did. All those early years, nobody sight fished for striped bass. No, they didn't do it. Now that becomes a thing. Dixon pioneered a lot of it. I think Jeff Northrup did a lot up in Connecticut and all that with the flats boats and stuff. So they're bringing that stuff up here. And before you know it, sight fishing became really outstanding. So that's why we would go up to Montauk and fish the North Fork and all the western side of Montauk, sight fishing. That's what that was all about. So it was a gathering of similar likes. And John and Paul, they would invite people.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that happened. Done. And we'd go up and have a ball. Anybody from...
So it was like a week of fishing and partying?
Yeah, about that. You stayed as long as you could. I think it was more like a weekend.
That was the Pirates Party, which included all of you guys
incredible.
fishing and partying and eating.
Yep, I would have to bring up fried diavolo sauce and clam sauce. And then here we're cooking, me and Lance cooking and spaghetti and dishing it all out.
Were you all staying in one house?
We were staying, I think, at the Ocean Reef Club and wherever we were, know. So that was, or a motel, similar. So I had a ball. It's very special. So,
what about the false albacore? Wasn't there a stage that after the striped bass run was kind of over, you all gravitated down and fished for false albacore?
Yeah, well, the way it would go in Northeast up in Montauk, the albacore came actually very close to the striped bass, but generally seemed to be the forerunner of the bass blitz that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd get up there early September, late or middle to late August to get the albies up there. And then the bass would come by. And when all our fishery here started to wane, we then started to head down to North Carolina, Tom Ehrenhardt's house, Morehead City and Harker's Island, and for the big albacore hit, which became more and more popular. I went down the following year after Lefty and Flip did a show with Tom Ehrenhardt about false albacore fishing right there. So Lefty invited me, and I brought my buddy Lance with me. So it was Lefty, Lance, and I down there with Tom Ehrenhardt and I can't think of the other guy's name who did the other boat. I can't think of him. But anyway, we went down there. There was nobody. They would watch us. They'd all be around. All the local fishermen would be there catching sea trout on the bottom and all of their little skiffs and stuff. Watch us chase these crazy false albacore all around. And then it got bigger and bigger. And then more people would hear of it. And then they invited a few more people. Then all of a sudden it became an event.
Right.
It was never.
That's when I was there. I was there with President Bush.
That was when it all depended. I think I missed President Bush by a week.
Mm-hmm.
I was there the week after.
Right.
And always come down there. It seemed like we were down there around Election Day or pretty soon bore it. And stayed at Tom's house. And again, here we go. We cook.
It was crazy because you see the blitzes, and all the boats would congregate right on top of the school.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's casting, and it was like crazy.
We got one. I got video of one day we're out there. We were with Lance and I. We had Donnie Jones's son with us, and we're right in the middle. You could see the boats actually had maybe 8 or 10 boats had a school of false albacore encircled. So you got guys from different sides, not a lot of wind, so they were casting into the circle at each other, kind of.
Yeah,
We're
sure.
a little further away. Now you got video of the kids all hooked up, and Lance is trying to get the thing up for him right off the bow, and you can see the different color fly lines all intermingled, twisted up, and it's all on video. It says, "Oh my God, he had to untangle them, and no, this is mine, this is yours. I got it over here." Sellers was one of the boats on the other
Sam Sellers,
side. Yeah.
that's right. He was
Gene
there.
Quigley was in another
Sure.
boat. Oh God, we had a ball. That was, like you said, everybody converged on it. Just so happened to happen that way. The school is there.
Mm-hmm.
Boats come on both sides all the way around, and they're casting to the center.
Oh, my God, it's crazy.
You know it did not, because they hook up and run. God only knows what's going to happen.
You know, I don't know very many other guys other than the Dixon that would leave here and then go to the Keys and tarpon fish and become a guide in the Keys.
Yeah.
You know, like you have a lot of Western Montana guides that are in the Keys throughout the winter, and then as soon as the tarpon run is over, they go back out west. Do you remember any other guides that used to gravitate to the Keys after all this was taking place, other than Dixon?
No, I think Paul. He's the only one that I know that did it. I don't know that many captains, actually.
I mean, after what you saw down there, how come you didn't start fishing more for tarpon?
I did go.
Quite a bit?
I went, well, not quite a bit. I was able to, I did my tarpon. I did my first tarpon I caught with Jack Gardside. This gentleman right here.
Wow.
That's on my desk
In loving
every
memory.
day. Jack was one of my closest, dearest friends in the business, and highly influential too, by the way. We were in the Bahamas, came through Key West, came up through the Keys, and at the Golden Grouper, Jack always had a room. Well, we stopped in to see if he was there. Sure enough, he's there. He's got a couple guests. He and I fished at the Vaca Cut Bridge that night.
Sure.
And
with fly rods fly
rods at night
on the shadow line
and
under the
yes,
bridge.
Exactly. And I caught him on my first one on a white silicone, much smaller than this, but it's silicone. And that's what I got my first tarpon on. And the funny thing was, bring you back a little bit. There was raccoons in the tree, and I could still remember my white silicone stuck in the tree because it was hard to cast. And I'm pulling on it, and now 2 baby raccoons come out. And finally the fly came off, no problem. But that woke them up. He ended up coming down, and then the mother came down. They were into the garbage cans and all that shit.
Right.
And but finally I got my fish, and I could still remember Jack sitting like an Indian, with his crossed legs, butt on the ground there, and he's smoking a cigarette. And he held his cigarette like
kind of backwards.
Yeah, backward, like the Germans are doing.
Yeah,
like
right,
this.
right. Yeah.
And he's smoking, and he's watching me. And then I remember it was about 60 pounds. And I said, that was my first one I ever handled. And he's sitting there and just looking, not helping her. And then I get him right by us. I said, "Like a bass?" He says, "Yep, like a bass." In other words, no teeth.
Yeah, sure.
And that's how I got him. That was my first tarpon, was with Jack Gardside. So then I also, and the nice thing about that, and I mean nice, no cameras. We have no camera, no proof of it. It was only he and I. So you have to take my word for it, because Jack's no longer with us. Otherwise, you could have talked to Jack. So it was a personal thing. It was between us. But that's exactly how that story happened.
Let's go back to some of your fly designs here.
Okay.
Tell me about the lip on this one and this fly here.
Okay.
And the evolution of, your fly designs over the years, from the surf candy, which might have been the very first one that you were using for bluefish and striped bass. And what is your favorite fly that you ever tied?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll go back. The silicone starts with this style. I should say the pop lips is only one more step to this, which would be here, is the lip itself.
That's the pop lip, you call it.
Yes. This is a silicone, not a silicone. It's silicone because back then when I did it, cloning was very popular. There was a term that everybody was familiar with. So I said the similarity of the real thing. I said it's a clone. It's a silly clone, or that's how I named it. But it gave more durability, more like naturalistic feel. It trapped air in it's sheep fleece, trimmed. So like a lot of fibers in there, and there's no water getting in there unless you forced it in. It's not going to go in that way. You'd have to squeeze this and create suction
you're stripping
to pull it in.
It's going into
so they like to stay high with it. And if you get it to go down, it slowly sinks. So we would use it casting into jetties where it would go down, yet the leader would go down. The line could go down, but the fly would suspend a little bit more, come down at an angle like this. And it was really easy to control. Another way to control the fly depth.
Right. How did you come up with this idea?
I had thought of somebody was talking about crabs, soft shell crabs or something. And I said, I wonder if I tried silicone. I wonder if I can get that to make a crab. Well, I got the right material. I got some fleece. That came up here in this room. But then I had silicone. That tube stayed downstairs for God knows how long. Excuse me. Then I finally realized, well, I got to get two together. Let's get this done. Well, I didn't make a crab. Mullet season. So I could fashion. I had flies that I tried to use for with fleece-shaped heads, but the bluefish would just chew that up. It was a shame because it was such a good fly. I needed protection. So I said, well, I got the fleece. Let's put silicone on it. That's how the silicone came out.
But that fly is still not very durable.
Oh, it's durable.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't the teeth of a fish chew this all back end up?
Well, the back end. I mean, not the whole fly, but this area.
Right.
So, but this could be repaired. They get cut. You just re-silicone them. All right?
And then tell me about the lip.
So then the lip came from Jaworowski. He had written the article about the silicones for Fly Tire Magazine or American Angler, whatever it was. And the article was sent in. He said to me around Thanksgiving, I said, hey, Ed, I'm tapped out. You get any ideas if you need anything or something? Because I don't go and tie a fly and make it different to make it something different, to make it new. It has to solve a problem. Usually that's how all of this comes out of it. And I said, what we really need is a fly that actually swims, like a plug, like those up there, like a black redfin or a hellcat or a rebel and all that. Well, we didn't have that. And then I knew some guys were trying to use fingernails.
Fingernails?
Fake fingernails.
Oh, the fake ones, right.
Nah.
And you tie that on to make the lip?
Yeah. You would put a hole in it and then put it on the hook. And that didn't work because it was rigid. It could break. It could crack. It would turn out. It was terrible. I said, well, all right, I'm doing a silicone. All right. He said, I'll call you. Sure enough, next day, I said, I got it. He said, you're kidding me. So he came 100 miles from his door to mine. Exactly. He came and I showed it to him on the pier over here in the water. He said, son of a gun. So that was the pop lips. And then he right away took a picture of it and sent it to American Angler, and they put a little insert in his original article on silicones. And now this is a big one.
Did you sell these? Did you
No.
have a company ever sell these?
No.
Or these are just flies that you tied for yourself?
Just for myself or anybody who wanted
And that's
them.
pretty durable.
Oh,
that head.
yeah. And the nice thing about that, don't forget, now it's soft. So when you pull it out of the water, it bent back a little bit.
Slide out.
And it flies through the air, same thing. It doesn't butt, so bad.
Right.
And
what kind of rods were you using to throw these bigger flies?
10 weights.
More of a faster, stiffer tip?
Yeah, just, you had a good overweighted the line sometimes. I used to like the billfish taper.
Oh, right.
That was like a 13
shooting
on
head.
a 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a shooting
But
head.
kind of like more of a heavier
Yeah.
front end.
There's one with a, see the tail hook? All right. It's got the tail here, because a lot of times you say, well, maybe this gets in the way.
You get the 2 hooks.
But I do too. Or what's even better, I make it, see, this is 12 and 6.
Right.
Make it 3 and 6. So in other words, this would be on its side, would come off the side.
Mm-hmm.
That's better hookups than the same path. This is the same path.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to help. It's going to get more because there's no obstruction. But still, if you had it out the side, you're really, that's unique. That's really cool.
Did you ever find yourself more consumed with tying than you were fishing?
No. Fishing was still prime. That was most important. Tying was only
to facilitate the catching.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I got all my baits from, this could be your silver sides or your bay anchovy with a different color, same fly. So that did, or sand eels, same thing, smaller sand eels. It was my surf candies, pine. I had a banger. That was my surface lure. Quick, just cut live body in half, put some tape on it, don't even use it at all. Bucktail out the back, center hole. And if you wanted to, you put 2 holes, one through the bottom, more traditional popping, or I like it through the middle, more chugging, and then I can get real long stripped and pull it, and it'll stay underwater and throw all kinds of bubbles behind it.
Wow.
So that's what, and there was nothing to it. It's so simple, no painting. Our Kaboom Boom poppers, we used to have to do painting and slit them, put the hook in, glue them in. No.
Did you ever sell your designs to Umpqua or big companies like that would mass produce your flies?
Yep, Umpqua does.
How many flies are they tying for you, or of your designs?
Well, they did this. They did the surf candy, the banger, the ultra shrimp. I don't know if there was any more other than that at that time.
Just a handful of flies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now I got some surf candies. I don't even know the name of the company anymore. I got my little surf candies and bucktail deceivers now. Mm-hmm. And they're very good. I just wish I could remember their name, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But this to me, I never really made any money out of this business at all. I got my books. I did my books to document my stuff. People asked me. They knocked on my door, said, Bob, we want to do a book. Okay, good. I'm happy with that. So I did that twice. I got pop flies and I got the fly design. So.
This is right here in your room.
Yep. This is done by Tom Lynch, the same guy who took that picture of me casting that loop. So he's my buddy here and one of my best friends too. And we did that up here. I said, it's like I got everything in front of me. Well, there you go. And that ended up being a cover.
When did you end up spelling flies? F-L-E-Y-E.
Way back in, I would say, mid-'70s, late 70s anyway.
Do you remember when you thought, I'm going to spell this differently, these flies?
Yeah, it would be with I used to call this, I'll give you this back. I used to call this a pop fly. Okay, it was my surf candy. But then with other patterns coming along, I said, no, wait a minute, this is not a pop, this is a surf candy.
Right.
Because this reminded me of the candy my father would suck on, just Charms, hard candy.
Really?
So I made it a surf candy.
That's interesting.
And then all the flies that I make, I would refer to as pop flies. That would be my designs.
Right.
And it would be way back. Jaworowski, I think when he wrote first about the surf candy, I believe it's in there.
American Angler.
Yeah. It might be in there.
Do you have a favorite fly?
Yeah, I do. And my buddy Johnny King's going to get mad at me again, but it's the Semper fly, and I don't think I have one here. I have one around somewhere. But it's more closely, you would recognize it more to a tarpon type fly. It's saddle hackles in the rear, and then it's heavily webby. I only use the webbiness to do the collar. Mm-hmm. and it's just a perfect shape. It's a fly I can make in all different sizes, all different colors, multicolors, and I could fish it anywhere.
It's the most effective fly you've ever tied?
I have the highest degree of confidence in it when I use it. But when I put the saddles in the back, I do it around the clock, all concave. Boom, boom, boom. They're like this.
Wow.
And the movement is incredible.
Did you ever use your flies for tarpon?
Just the silicone. That's all.
And it
my
worked
first
under
and
the
only
bridge.
tarpon I got was on my white silicone. I still have it somewhere. I don't know where.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then I see when we go back to that too, I was able then also to go. I did a lot of time in the Bahamas. I do my bonefish, got my permits. Didn't get a barracuda. Hooked up with a nice big. Oh God, what's that? John, when we were on out there in the Bahamas, I forget. It got around a coral and busted me off. I can't think of the damn fish, but I had good.
Snapper.
Pardon?
Mutton snapper.
Mutton snapper, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was I had him all most of the way. And then the biggest, I lost a real big permit on. I had used it was a sage rod, and Lefty had told me they're breaking. And it was a green blank. It was I forget what that was called. It was only an 8-weight. And I was fishing with Clouser. So Clouser, he's in the stern, I'm on the bow, and getting the thing coming right up by the boat here. And then when it got to the left of me, I turned the rod over like that and broke. Clouser was getting, at that time, he was getting his camera. So, but I was lucky enough to get another one later, but not as big as that big dude. It was the real big one. It was one of those like this.
I'm just going to put this up just a little bit. There you go.
So,
Tell me about the show you did with Flip.
Walker's Cay Chronicles, again, through Paul Dixon. I had a bunch of my videos and all. We sent that to Flip, and they said, oh, we got to do some of this. And it shows video of Montauk and all. So they had it scheduled to do 2 shows, not us 2, but one for me to do the the surf show, and then another one out in the boat with Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, when we get there, we started our first day that we're going to do the surf one first. We're on the surf casting away and all that, and he's getting kind of nasty. And then next thing you know, we have a hurricane blow in that night. So we couldn't do the surf show. We had to wait a couple days for things to calm down. And then they went out in the boat and did Dixon's show. And they had to change our script on mine. So, and they only had, by that time, we're getting close. They had 4 days each show to do. And then they had to go. They would be done.
Sure.
So we're getting tight. We didn't get enough of footage that they wanted, I guess. And they used some of my video on the show. And then they also revisited where fly fishing has come from and how far it's gone by that time.
Right.
Through their older shows to fill time. And then my show was on and was done. And unfortunately, I'm out in the boat in order to get it done. And when we're out there, the fish were all over the beach.
Oh, no.
But, you got a $150,000 camera on board. You ain't getting out of the boat. And you didn't have the time to go all the way around and redo things. So we stayed in the boat. They changed the storyline.
Sure.
Made a show. But it was a blast. I got to know and hang with Flip and his buddies. And we ate and we talked. We exchanged ideas. And when Flip wrote his book, he's got the story I told him about my father and how we fished and how surf fishing was the best, and just like we talked in the beginning. And we had a nice relationship ever since.
It's interesting, and sometimes you don't really realize it, even while it's happened and after it's happened, but you're the celebrity just like all these other guys now are. Can you believe that you became who you are?
Nah, I don't know. I don't feel any different. It's just,
but the notoriety is huge with what you've done.
That could be, but all I can tell you though, that one thing that if I do know that's there, but that also means to me, I got more responsibility to those who need my help, or I get online because it's not like I can't get around that well. But when I can get online, I see somebody tying my flies, I can always give a little bit of encouragement or good criticism it's going to make it helpful to them. That gives me the greatest joy. And they treat me very nice, with nice words that they say and all. So at least I hope that I'm doing right. And that's what the whole thing is for me now. It's just thank you. And, I'm there for him anytime I can help,
You were talking about Lefty's last wish.
Lefty's last wish, when he was on his last month or so, or 2 months, we would talk every Wednesday night. And he wanted to, his biggest thing, he says, Bobby, we just got to make sure that the history is accurate. If we don't have an accurate history of saltwater fly fishing, we don't have a sport. We don't have anything. So, and he was like, you have any pictures of these guys? I said, Lefty, I got a lot of stuff. So I would send him some pictures. Oh, yeah, that's who I was thinking about. I forgot. And he's, I saw another guy in there that I forgot about. So that was utmost in his mind at the time, as he's ready to pass, was make sure that this is all documented, that it's correct. The history of saltwater fly fishing was correct.
And you have a lot of that right here.
I got a lot of it here, yeah.
But you also told me that you gave a lot of this away for a traveling show for, I think, American Museum of Fly Fishing.
Yes.
You were doing a traveling show. You
Jerry
gave it
Gibbs.
all away, and then it all came back.
Yeah, Jerry Gibbs had called me, says, Bobby, would you mind sending this up? I said, oh, my pleasure. I would, because it was supposed to be in a traveling museum that would go to different areas and show what saltwater fly fishing was. They set them all up inside. It's really beautiful. Well, I said, set it all up. I said, this is on loan. I told them, and they said, yeah, fine. Boom, boom, boom. Well, I don't see the van ever happening yet. I gave it a couple of years. So then I started to worry. I said, well, I need that stuff back. I don't want to lose that. And I called them up and I told them, she said, no, it's not being done yet. They're going. I said, well, listen, when you need it, I'll have it. Well, just please send it back. And then I was afraid, because I just sent them up bulk,
Mm-hmm.
When they sent it back, it was like it was all museum quality, all in beautiful, look at this. This is how I got it back. That's not how I sent it.
Wow.
Everything is
Saltwater Fly Rodders of America.
They did me such a favor. Look at this beautiful stuff. And they did all that for me. So I want to get it back to them so that I have the fullest confidence in it's safe with them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, on loan, but that doesn't mean too much.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's all this stuff. Oh, look at Joan Wolf, Lee Wolf, all the old boys. And look at this. Here's one for you.
Look at Lefty.
There's something on the back, too. Lefty Kreh world record. Read it in the back. Photo by Lefty.
Lefty Kreh world record, 20.5-pound Jack Crevel, 10-pound test line, caught off from Key West. Lefty with a gaff.
Here's a
It's
nice.
got an old Seamaster S-handle fly reel.
There you go. Talk to
Here's
Joan.
Joan. Tell me about Joan. I mean, she inducted you in the Catskills Fly Fishing Museum,
Yeah, I have
right?
a picture of her giving me my plaque. I mean, my affidavit.
Sure. What was that like? To
she's
be
just-
inducted into the Hall of Fame by Joan
Oh,
Wolf.
jeez. She and I was able to sit with her for a little bit too on that day, and that was a special time. She was an elegant lady, and she was lady in every meaning of the word. She was just perfect. Very, very pleasant, nice and easy to talk to. Goes way back that I was in the Suffering show, and she gave me a couple pointers with casting, and her style and I are very similar. Long, same with Lefty and all, but a little bit different. And then I can remember then later on, still at the casting platform there, casting into the pond, and I see this little gentleman look through the curtain, and he came back to me later. He says, Oh my God. He says, for a minute there, I thought that was my daughter on there. It was Joan Wolf's father.
Oh, wow.
And I got to talk to him, and he was real nice to me. And of course, I met Joan. I didn't meet Lee very much. I only met him just once. But Joan, we had done a few things together. We would see each other at shows because since then, Lee would have died real soon after that.
Right.
And then we just pleasant lady. We got along so well, and we did a lot of things together. With shows, and always made sure we spent a little bit of hello, how you doing? And then at the Catskill Fly Fishing Center, they inducted me a few years back, and she was there to hand me. Got a nice picture of her and I, and it was just such. All you think when you think of Joan Wolf was her tenderness, her sweetness, her just so pleasant, such a wonderful lady.
The best. I remember meeting her on a number of occasions, and I gave a tarpon presentation at the New York Anglers Club, and she and Ted were there that night.
Ted, yes.
And so we've always had each other's telephone numbers. We used to do IGFA stuff together a long time ago. So we were hoping to do an interview with her yesterday. And at first, when I called her maybe 2 months ago, the phone rings. She picks it up and goes, "Andy Mill, I haven't seen you in so long." She had me, she saw my ID, knew me, and we talked. And she really didn't want to do the podcast then, and I talked her into it.
Okay.
And I go, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," And last week or so, she decided to cancel. She didn't want to be on, but talking to her over the last couple of weeks, we were talking about casting and fishing, and I asked her. I said, because I got her, I bought her CD, I bought her books, I read everything about her. I wanted to be really super prepared for this interview, and it went away. But when I talked to her just recently, we started talking about casting, and her voice just exploded in joy at 98 years of age.
God.
Her life was all about casting. And I asked her, I said, give me a balance between the value and the importance of casting versus fishing. And she said, there's not even a comparison. My whole life was about casting.
Casting.
And she, like Lefty, were great celebrities to the common man. They were the nicest, the most beautiful people at a very simple level with no egos
Absolutely.
At all.
Well said.
And I see that with all of you guys. I see that with you and Klauser and Ed Jarowski and Lefty and all you guys. Your generation has such an even keel among the celebrities that really basically innovated the sport, innovated fly tying and casting and all this. How do you see the sport change over the years since you guys were at the shows and in your prime?
That's a good question. Change, as much as change is not the same as grow. I don't see it changing too much from what it was. Maybe more guys using stripping baskets and stripping, hand over hand. But there's no. It's still the same. It's still following the same kind of. They're accepting the challenges, and I don't see anybody troll. In other words, I don't see anybody trolling flies or anything like that. They still got to make their cast. I think they're maybe a little bit more into it, but if anything, there seems to be somewhat of a drop off now. Doesn't seem to be the straight communication as there used to be. The frequency or the availability of articles written about fly fishing in saltwater. Doesn't seem that we had magazines back then, 2 or 3, or they're competing like crazy.
Because now it's all video.
Yeah,
it's all on the
it's all on the internet.
Right.
Yeah, and you have no control over who's what. See, back then, when Ed would go to American Angler or Fly Tire with an article, they say, who is this? Who's this by? Who's this done? Who did this? Who did that? They ran. Then they say, well, I'll make some calls. And they would find, you ever hear of this guy? You ever hear of this guy? And they would run.
They were vetting very closely.
Yeah. And they say, okay, well, we know we got credibility here. You don't have that when you have the internet now. You don't know who that guy is. It's, putting their own name on somebody else's stuff. That does happen. No big deal, but still, you want credibility, and you run the risk of being,
Shot
getting
down.
misinformation a lot. And go back to what Lefty wants. He wants that history to be accurate, and you don't need anybody clouding what actually happened. And I don't see it changing. I mean, it still looks the same to me.
It's gotten so refined and so
Yeah.
sophisticated.
Yeah.
I mean, the fly designs with some of the guys with saltwater crab patterns,
Well, Davey
you
Skoke's
see
got the
Skoke
coolest
has got
deal.
it going.
He's got that muscle arm or the big arm. I just talked with him for the first time in a while. He's one of my favorite fly tires of all time.
Who other fly tires are out there that you really kind of follow and see what they're designing?
Oh, Dave Skoke would be one. Of course, Jack was always another. We go on and on. Of course, Clouser.
Any young guys?
Young guys now, I got Ben Wally, Gunnar Brammer. All these guys, I like what I see. Scott Stryker. Blaine Chocolate. Oh, my God. That was going to be who I was going to say next for sure. And I was lucky enough in my book, Johnny King, David Nelson. One of the prerequisites before I did fly design to Stackpole, I said, I want to include as many of my friends as I possibly can into the experience of making a book, the excitement of waiting for it to come out, the challenge of putting it on words. All they had, there was an influence by me, fine. But then they were able to then show people their flies in that. And those guys, I wish I would have had, I do have Davey Skoke in there. Johnny King, another big fly tire I like. Ben Wally, Gunnar Brammer, they're the newer ones of the two. And then there's more. Now I'm seeing more guys I'm getting more familiar with.
Nick Curcione, is that his first name?
Oh, my God, he can't tie worth a damn. Nick Curcione?
Yeah.
Nah.
No, I'm thinking of the young
I'm
kid.
only kidding.
Who's the young kid in California?
California.
I can't think of his name right now.
But I got to go back. I got to put a disclaimer in for Nick.
Yeah, Nick's
That's
a
my old
fisherman.
buddy. Oh,
Nick's
God.
a fisherman.
And he's
got such a great laugh. He's such a good
I've
dude.
never
man.
laughed more fishing with anybody in my life than with Nick.
How about when we did the Isaac Walton Award for
Dixon?
Paul Dixon?
Yeah.
You and Nick were on the podcast with us.
God, yeah. Nick's a
On the
very
Zoom.
good tire. He loves fly tying.
He is a good tire.
He's a fantastic caster, but I think he'd rather be a better fly tire. And I won't ever let him up off the ground with that one. It's just. Again, here we go now. Also, again, friendships.
Right.
What do we talk about? We're not didn't make a mention of any fish that we caught together. Mentioned the times we spent and laughed together. That's what this shit's all about.
Yeah.
To me, that's most important. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the people you're with.
It's living life.
Yeah, I don't care for very many isolated fishermen that just fish by themselves.
Right.
Why? It's something to be shared with. That same thing, like the one thing I probably take most pride in my career is the fact that I never charged anybody to learn how to cast a fly, fish a fly, or tie a fly. I would charge the guy who's having me as their guest, and they're paying, people are paying to come see me. They're paying to him. I'm not charging him. I'm charging the owner. But I like, all my life, it was always given to me. A couple guys, that's what we do. We sit around a table, we exchange ideas. We help each other. Oh, you got a problem with this? Try it this way. Or you ought to go see this guy. And that's what my whole career is. And I've never had to do anything. Just share it. Have fun. It's no different than the first time I came home, sat over there at Cap Colvin's tackle store and shot the shit with the guys about fly fishing. It's the same thing.
Just evolved to the higher level.
Yes.
Down the road.
Well, that just so happened. So,
what are you most proud of after all this?
I'm most proud of 52 years of marriage and my business. And then, of course, my fly tying career. Again, I'm most proud of just what I described. That I did it without having to charge anybody how to cast a fly. Not to tie one. Not to fish it. It all was whatever you needed to know. I'd tell you whatever I could. And I do it. I mean, I've taught so many people how to cast in my parking lot at the Shady Rest. And if they came in and I was out there, say, doing a garden, and they come out with a fly rod, I said, "You, Bob? Yeah, can you help me out? Come on, let's go."
Did that happen a lot?
And that particular accident, or it only happened once, particularly exactly I just described it.
Right.
I didn't know the guy. He came out of his car, had a fly rod. He says, "Are you Bob, right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm having trouble with my casting." And I said, "Well, come on, put it together. Let's go right here." I said, "You don't mind casting on the stones, right?" He said, and that worked on him.
If you had it to do differently, or if you had it to do all over again, would you do anything differently?
I think I would probably have traveled more, but it's hard to do when you got a business too. See, that I was able to do that, and still thank God for my wife and the people I have working for me doing a good job at the restaurant. To do it differently, no. I'm kind of very happy with the way things turn out. This was big, the house up here. This room. What's happened in this room from was it 86 to 92. That's big. That was special. It really was. I mean, every day or every Tuesday from January through May to the middle of May, because Memorial Day weekend would come. It's a busy time at the restaurant, so I had to say, well, no, we can't do it no more. So we ended it. That was special. So special. I mean, thank God I kept certain records at least towards the end. And I got videos almost every Tuesday night we were doing it. I had put the camera up on a shelf, and I would just turn it on. Same thing I did with Lefty when Lefty did his slideshow. The whole trouble is all I had was a white spot and him talking because it had the light of the slide projector.
Right.
The room is dark. And then, of course, but later on, in case everything was fine. But now I got all that on video. I got it all down. I got it. It's documented. Al Q wrote a nice story of it out in Tail magazine, and they featured it. That was beautiful. That was a nice. Thank God I got that. And I know that the guys that you see pictured on the wall, all these guys are just our regular guys, regular friends. No celebrities.
It's like they're still in the room.
They're
still here.
Yep. And they were just so happy that they were here. And that's probably my most proudful time. Not the books, not the shows, and my friends and Tuesday nights here at the house.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I've been lucky.
Shout out to Drew Chacon. That's who you were thinking of.
Yeah, Drew Chacon.
Oh, Drew, yeah. I've met Drew a couple times.
A young kid. He's doing some good work.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know the last I talked to him was at one of the shows, and he was showing me his book, but it was expensive, and he did it himself.
Right.
That's real high quality stuff.
Yeah,
so.
It was produced by Tom Perro
Okay.
from Wild River Press, who I worked with with my book. But Bob, I don't know. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
Well, the best would be it's really the beginnings of the saltwater fly rodders of America. That was that was special. That's all this stuff that I have in here. I'd like to show you that, if you don't mind, because it would be. I wouldn't want to not go through all of that because there's a lot here. Here you go. A copy, Chapter 1, Chewing Gum Members, Saltwater Fly Rodders of America there. And there's some cartoons that they used. And then there's here, Saltwater Fly Rodders. That's just my cover for this that I gave them in there. Chewing Gum Chapter 1, Credo, national organization dedicated to the furtherance and amplification of the use of the fly rod, fly reel, and fly line in salt water. It holds as its primary purpose that the technique of fly rod fishing is not in itself the end result of angling, but an added expression encompassing a fuller gratification of angling art in salt water. Lays down no restriction to its membership other than boundless enthusiasm for our own technique and for exchange of information among its enthusiasts. Since the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America, Chewing Gum Chapter 1, are national in scope, it is further planned that local chapters will constantly exchange facts and dates about their local areas and activities. If the organization achieves the above, it will then surpass its goal. And then you got a lot of stuff in here. That's just part of it. In this here, this was, I don't want to undo it, but this was their banner.
Oh, right.
That they would have up in here, like you see in that picture. Man.
You have it all. You have it all right here.
Look at this one here. Saltwater Sportsman, 1966. There's Fred Schreier on with the net. And then there's that picture of Cap.
The voice of the coastal sport fisherman.
Look at this. Get that in here.
Bob, it's so great you saved all this stuff.
And I think, there's Fred. I think Cap was in a picture with, what do you call, in one of these anyway. I sent you that picture. But then, if you read through some of this stuff, it's pretty interesting. Loan, original certificate of charter for the Saltwater Fly Rodders. See, this is how they sent it back. That's taking good care of me. That was great.
Check
that
look
out.
At that.
And here you go. This is the Chewing Gum Chapter 1. Look at their names on there. There was a club, a local bunch of guys. They called themselves Chewing Gummers.
Yeah, what's that about?
Chewing Gummers are like a ditzy fisherman.
Frank Woolner, Dick Wood, Captain Calvin Press, Fred Schreier.
That's the beginning of that organization right there.
Lefty Kreh, Art Perlmutter.
Yes.
Wow. Look at this. That's it.
That's some real special stuff right there. So you got that. And thanks to the museum that they did this for me. And then again, I will get this all back to them as much as I can.
Well, Bob, I gotta pretty much wrap this up at this point.
All right,
you
brother.
know, I want to take a look at this after we, close out the podcast. But you've surpassed your dreams, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Whoever dreams that you would ever be in a Hall of Fame, whoever dreamt that you would be an iconic forefather, if you will, of fly tying.
Well, it was a lot of fun along the way. I got to tell you that. And again, it gives me great pleasure when I put on my phone in the morning and I see somebody tying one of these, and God, they tie them better than I do. That's for sure. And I wasn't even going to put it in my book because I didn't think anybody would want to learn how to do that. It was too tedious. Well, now everybody in the world is trying it. So that's good.
Yeah.
From this to this. It's a big, long history in between. It's over 50 years.
Crazy.
Between the two flies.
But thank you for sharing your story. I so
pleasure,
appreciate it. So great hanging with you last night.
All right, man.
Bob, you're the
All
best.
the best to you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Really appreciate it.
All right, sir.
Buddy.
What I saw is West Side Story. What I saw is just a